Hey guys, what's going on and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be doing a new video following on from my previous Hoi4 tutorial video, where we're basically going to be talking about how you control units, how you create armies, and essentially how you fight and win wars. And the example I'm going to give today is basically I'm going to do a mock war between the Kingdom of Hungary and Austria. Now I've chosen these two countries for a couple of reasons. One is because they're fairly small and easy to manage, I guess, and it's a small scale war. I won't go into a larger complicated war. I think for newer players we'll keep it fairly simple and just talk about what you would do if you're one small country trying to fight a war against another small country. And so Austria and Hungary, and I guess the reunification of Austria-Hungary is a pretty nice war to sort of go through and talk about how you control your units, how Hoi players think about fighting wars, and stuff you as a player should be thinking of, and how you approach a war basically. So first things first, let's start with the kind of basics of controlling divisions and creating armies. So here we are as Hungary. We start with a couple of divisions, not too bad, a small army, but still one that can project a fair amount of power against other small countries. So what I've done here is basically click and drag to create this box, and of course I've selected all my divisions. But how do I get all my divisions to work together in unison as an army? Well, all you do is go down to the bottom of your screen here and click this, and it says New Army. Left click it, and now all of my divisions have been assigned to a group basically. If you're familiar with other kind of real-time strategy games, you'll have this notion of grouping units together. This is basically the equivalent of that. You've grouped units together and now they can operate together. So now I've got all my units together, how do I move them as a group? Because I can select individual divisions here. So if I want to select this division, I can move them there, move them there. How do I get these divisions to move together as a front line, for instance? Well, you click on your particular army here, and you come to this button here called the front line button. Left click it, and you'll see all these dotted lines come up. Now this essentially gives you the option to, as you can see by the prompt there, assign a front line. So I'm going to go to war with Austria, so I'm going to hover my mouse over this dotted line with the Austro-Hungarian border and left click it like so. And it'll give you this prompt of this sort of like, this battle line, I guess. It'll show you that 16 divisions of Army 1 have been assigned to this front line. Now, before I press the play button, I'm just going to quickly go and do some of my focuses that'll allow us to get a war goal on Austria. We won't bother too much with explaining some of the research side of prepping for a war. Just now I'm going to focus on the sort of commanding units, but of course when you're fighting a war you're going to want to think in the future of how long you're going to want to wait, what kind of things you're going to want to research to make your army more effective. In this particular instance I'm going to research some things that are going to help my army. So support weapons, as you can see, gives buff to my infantry and a whole bunch of other units, so it makes sense to research this first. Same thing with artillery, I want them to be more powerful, so I'm going to give and research this, which gives me artillery attack bonuses, and I'm also going to research engineer companies. This is all a bit complicated. If you haven't played the game before, don't worry too much, this will probably be another video talking about support companies, but all you need to know is that basically you create armies by highlighting selecting divisions, clicking here for new army, and then if you want to assign a front line, come down to here, and then here you go, it assigns a front line. So we're going to play time, and you'll see all these units start to move to the front line. But how do you move the front line? The front line, as it is just going to stay there, right? If you declared war tomorrow, these units, they've got no orders to move forward. Well, if we pause it real quick, and if you excuse me, my Hoi brain is now going to just go into a bit of autopilot. Don't worry about this too much. Construction and again production of military equipment will probably be another video But yeah, so if I want to now assign these units, this army, to do something, instead of going to the front line order, I will now go to this, the offensive line. Now this is basically how you plan an offensive. So I'm going to draw a rough line that's going across these sort of provinces here. Now this is telling my units that I want all of you units to collectively push up to this line here and hold. So now if I press this button here, click to activate, they won't move yet because we're not at war. But when we go to war, these units will then move and assess on their own accord how to sort of proceed and attack, and they will stop once they reach this line. Now, one thing we haven't done for this particular army is assign it a commander. So we're going to click on this army. In the top left here, we're going to click to assign a commander. Oh, I apologise for that. Hang on, I'll get rid of these notifications to make things a bit simpler. Anyway, where was I? Here we go. We're going to assign a commander by left clicking, and it gives us a bunch of predetermined options, historical options pretty much, for Hungary's generals. Now, different generals have different skills and different bonuses, so you'll want to pick the best one that makes sense for you. For instance, if I'm being very defensive, I'm going to want a general who, with this little shield icon, has the highest number. As you can see, a skill of 4 gives you plus 10% defense. Every one singular number gives you plus 2.5% bonus for attack and defense. So 2 would give you plus 5, 3 would give you 7.5, etc, etc. But because this general here at the top has the best attack and best defense, it makes the most amount of sense to assign him to this army. So that's what we're going to do. Now all these units have a 7.5% attack bonus, a 10% defense bonus, and other planning and supply consumption bonuses. And then the last thing we're going to do, which you don't necessarily have to do but will give you certain benefits, is if I pause again and click the left, I can create a new army group by selecting this army, like so. Because if you're somebody like Russia, for instance, one army of 24 divisions, which is the max you can go up to before you start taking huge amounts of penalties, isn't going to be enough to cover all of your borders here, is it? Especially when Germany takes Poland, it's a huge border. So you're going to want to create several army groups within which you have several armies, which basically gives you the ability to have a huge front line. But for the purpose of this video, that's perhaps a bit overcomplicated. We'll just stick with one unit and one army group. And for the army group, you can of course assign a field marshal. Now we only have one, so there's not much choice. We might as well assign him because he'll give us plus 5% attack and plus 2.5% defense. There we go. So we're trying to make our army as effective as possible. Now, one last thing I'll do before we perhaps skip to the war itself is just talk about divisions and what is called their organization and their strength. Organization is kind of self-explanatory, but it's how ready and organized the division are to either attack or defend. If they have max organization, they're as organized and prepared as they are to start an attack or a defense. Now, as they attack or get attacked themselves, organization will go down. In order to get it back up, they have to come out of combat to be able to reorganize, re-prepare, and then they can attack or start defending again. And the way you push units out of a tile is either by reducing their organization to 0, forcing them to retreat, or reducing their strength to 0 and destroying the division. Now, there are certain tactics and methods of decreasing an enemy's organization faster or decreasing their strength faster. For the purpose of this particular video, we're not going to focus too much on like, I would say how and what is best to do, where like, should you focus on destroying a division or reducing its org, or should you focus on encircling a division or just pushing them out of an area? That's a bit overcomplicated, and that's for you as the player to decide how you want to attack. Right, I'm going to use some cheats here just so we can speed up and get to the war You of course can use these cheats yourself to mess around with the game, practice, etc, etc, and I highly recommend that you do so. But we're going to complete all these focuses and do this one, which gives us a war goal. Pretty simple. Now I'm going to play the time bit just so Austria has a chance to get some divisions here. There we go. Otherwise it will make our war a bit too easy. So there we go. We're going to pause right now. Now I have what's called a war goal. This is essentially your country being like, hey, we want to go to war with this country for some reason. You know, whatever. It's like an arbitrary reason basically. But of course focuses will give you war goals and we'll have some sort of story. Oh, okay, we want to take over Austria because we want to restore Austria-Hungary in this particular case. So all I have to do is click this notification, go down to this left side here and just click declare war. Bring up this little pop-up. It'll tell you, okay, look, you want to conquer them. It'll say if there are any potential enemies or allies that you might have to deal with. You can call in your own allies, but since we don't have any and they don't have any, it's a pretty simple deal. So all we're going to do is send our declaration of war. A little notification will pop up telling you the Kingdom of Hungary has declared war on Austria. So now we're at war. So now our units can move into their territory and their units can move into our territory. So what should you do? Well, luckily our army is quite a lot bigger than theirs. They don't have that many divisions on the border. We have quite a lot. So it makes sense for us to try and attack. So I've got my offensive line set up. I've got my army ordered to move forward. So once we start playing the time, and I'll reduce the speed to make to show it a bit better. There we go. Our divisions are now automatically attacking along the front line. Now it's decided, the AI that is, that instead of attacking 3 tiles simultaneously, it finds it best to actually attack these 2 side tiles here, rather than focus on the whole front line. Now of course you can override this. If I want to take these 5 units here and attack the middle tile, I can do that as well, and the AI will happily carry out that order. But we'll speed the time up. There we go. Now the AI has done something quite interesting, which is it's done last stand. Now I'll explain it in a bit, but first of all I'll talk about these sort of circles with arrows on. These are basically telling you if you're winning or losing the battle. So as you can see here, if you click on it, it gives you a breakdown. So it says, okay, look, your 5 divisions are attacking this 1 Austrian division. It shows you a bunch of other things that are quite overcomplicated for a new player, so I won't go into too much, but you have like tactics that give you certain benefits that are randomized. It shows you the generals and their bonuses. It shows you how much attack you're doing, how much defense the enemy has, where the bonuses are coming from. Like I said, a bit overcomplicated for a new player, so I wouldn't worry about that too much. All I would just worry about is this green or is it red? So this battle here is not going well. If you want to find out why, you can click on it and you can say, oh look, our attack combined is like 24, 24, 24, 22. It's going to take a long time to break through a combined defense of 138 plus 83 plus 141. Hence why we're losing. And it'll also give you an estimate of how long the battle will take. So in this case, for this one, it'll take 24 days before we're able to push this division out. So we'll play the time a bit. Now, of course, when you're playing the game yourself, you'll want to figure out why you're winning or losing a certain battle. You'll want to change your divisions to better combat an enemy and like counter their tactics. So for instance, if an enemy has gone for a very defensive army, you're going to want to find ways to increase your attack to counter their defense and other things like that. For this purpose, it's quite simple. We have quite a large army. Even though we're losing this particular battle here, by doing this, we're pinning their troops to this tile. You know, these troops can't move without forfeiting the tile. So it makes sense to keep them there for now because we're winning in the north. and we're going to push through their line. So here we are, we're almost about to win this battle here against this particular Austrian division. And as you can see, their organization, this green bar here, is getting lower and lower and lower. This is like, okay, the units are pushing, we're more and more disorganized, we have to retreat. And of course you can see their strength as well is decreasing, this like orange bar. It's saying, okay, about, I don't know what that is, like 80% of their men and equipment have been lost, killed or destroyed. And of course when this gets to 100, we should move into this tile. But interestingly, something's happened where these units have now decided to attack us, which is now attacking this tile, which means we can't push into this tile because we're under attack ourselves. Now these units aren't doing anything because they ran out of organization, so we should order them to re-attack to keep them pinned. As you can see here, battles are kind of like this. It can be a cat and mouse game, choosing which tiles to attack, which tiles not to attack, just keeping enemy units sort of occupied. But look, that went to 100, and we've successfully pushed Austria out. Their organization is at 0, their strength is very low, they're not very combat effective at the moment. Now of course, we have the option now to just let the AI do its thing, but I want to what is called micro. It's short for micromanage, but Hoi players will call it micro, and that is control single or just a number of divisions and order them to do something on their own. So I'm going to order my divisions to enter these empty tiles in hopes of encircling these northern divisions here, and we'll order these divisions to move like such, again to encircle these northern divisions. Boom. So now these divisions are encircled. What does that mean though? Well, encircling is something you're going to want to do 9 times out of 10. Encircling means that instead of these units being able to retreat, like we saw this division did, back into a friendly tile, these units have nowhere to retreat. Once they run out of organization, they will be overrun, captured and killed. So it's in our best interest to encircle as many divisions as possible and attack them as quickly as possible, yet to close the encirclement. Now while we're doing that, and we're winning that battle comfortably, we're going to get our units to push into enemy territory as quickly as we can to kind of cause a lot of chaos and a lot of confusion. And we're also going to attempt to complete an encirclement in the south. Now I've got a choice. With almost all of the Austrian army now encircled in the south and the north, I can risk exposing my line and have this cavalry unit drive all the way to their capital, well, their new capital since we took Vienna. Their capital's fallen back to this particular location, which makes the most amount of sense because the AI is not smart enough to go and move this unit into this tile and cut me off. Now if it's a player, this is very risky, but given the fact that the AI is, for lack of better words, not very smart, it makes plenty of sense for us to take this one unit and simply drive it towards the capital while keeping that army occupied in an encirclement. Now the AI has finally realised, oh shit, I need to defend our last capital, which is here. Now you may be wondering why we haven't won the war yet. You know, almost all of their army is encircled and about to be destroyed. Why is Austria still fighting? Well, if you come up to this tab here and it says we are at war, left click it, it'll bring up this tab of the war and it'll show you useful statistics like how many divisions you have versus how many divisions they have, how many factories they have, and how many casualties you've both taken. It also shows you what is called their capitulation score, I guess. Basically the way this works is once this reaches 100%, the country has capitulated. Now in order to reduce this, you have to take tiles and what are called victory points. Now victory points can consist of towns and cities, basically let's select this tile here. Let's select this capital here and hover over it. You can see there just below the local time it says victory points 30. If we select this tile here and hover over it, no victory points. So we have to take enough towns basically to the point where Austria goes, okay, we can't fight this war anymore. And that's essentially the goal of every war, is to make sure that you capitulate your enemy. But now that we've finished up the encirclement here in the north, this war is pretty much wrapped up. We're going to win this. There's not really any debate about that. So all we're going to do is rush our units into these towns as quickly as we can to reduce their capitulation and victory points to 0. And there we are. Austria has capitulated and given us access to 50% of their stockpiled equipment. So by capitulating them, we've stolen a bunch of guns, some trains and other equipment like support equipment and fuel. Press OK. But now you've won the war, what do you do? Well, you've got a few options, and this is the new peace deals tab, which I'll admit even I am struggling to come to terms with. It's been it's been rehauled thanks to the new DLC. Has been made a lot better, but a lot more complicated. So we'll start with the very basics, but again, I think you guys should explore this yourself, and once you get to grips with the game, you'll have the skills to kind of explore the game yourself. I'm just teaching you the very basics. So for the purpose of this, we're going to go over here to take state, left click all of Austria's states, go to submit demands, and boom, it's now part of Hungary. Then we'll just come up to the top right here, confirm and exit, pause real quick, and there we are. We fought a war against Austria and successfully defeated them, taking about 11,000 casualties, but gaining some equipment in the process. Of course, while fighting that war, we would have lost equipment and manpower and stuff like that, but yeah, that is essentially how you fight wars. They are and can be a lot more complicated, involving navies and air forces, but those are things for when you get to grips with the game and become a bit more experienced. For the time being, I feel like what I've showed you, the basic controls of units, how to make armies, and how battles and wars are fought and won. Hopefully that's given you enough information to go ahead and try and practice yourself, fighting wars, winning battles, etc, etc. So yeah, I hope you guys have enjoyed that video. I hope it's been informative and helpful. If you liked it, of course, give it a like. And of course, subscribe to the channel. I'm really trying to hopefully grow the channel, especially with Hoi4 content, over the coming weeks and months. So hopefully there'll be a lot more tutorial videos coming out explaining different areas of the game. But yeah, I hope you guys have enjoyed. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. But take care, guys, and I will see you in the next one.